Hey there, welcome to That Dang Dad. My name is Phil. A few weeks ago on Twitter, I was wondering aloud about the concept of beauty as it relates to non-binary people. And my friend, Harker, the storyteller, the ideamancer, the velvet enigma, reached out to me because they too had been kicking around some ideas about beauty. So we decided to work together to solve beauty once and for all in a pair of video essays. Harker's piece is all about beauty and hierarchy, and it's amazing, so you should definitely go check it out. Link's in the description. As for me, I want to talk about physical beauty, starting with what it is, but more importantly, how beauty relates to gender, and how those of us building a more just and inclusive society might want to reevaluate our approach. Content warning, we're going to be talking beauty standards, fatphobia, colonialism, ableism, and sexism, so if that's going to ruin your night, consider skipping this one. But anyway, let's get started. I'd like to begin with something simple, easy, uncomplicated. Let's define beauty. All philosophers agree on this definition, so this should just take a sec. Fuck. Okay, so maybe let's just do a lightning round. According to Aristotle,
the chief forms of beauty are order and symmetry and definiteness, which the mathematical sciences demonstrate in a special degree.
According to Sappho,
some say thronging cavalry, some say foot soldiers, others call a fleet the most beautiful sight the dark world offers. But I say it's whatever you love best.
According to Edmund Burke,
by beauty I mean that quality or those qualities in bodies by which they cause love or some passion similar to it.
According to Ananda Kumaraswamy,
works of art are only good or bad, beautiful or ugly in themselves, to the extent that they are or are not well and truly made, that is, do or do not express, or do not serve their purpose.
These attempts at definition all locate beauty as an attribute possessed by a thing. Some, like Aristotle, see this as an objective measure, whereas others, like Sappho, see this as a subjective experience. Interestingly, all of these definitions are essentially gender neutral, which makes sense because many of these thinkers weren't just focused on the physical attraction side of beauty. However, even the concept of holistic beauty proposed by queer scholars Joni Eareckson and Janine Cogan in their analysis of lesbian dating ads is fairly gender agnostic. They write, "We observe the traditional descriptions of desired physical aesthetics to be replaced with words like confident, vibrant, warm, natural, and sincere. Holistic beauty encompasses all parts of a woman. Her self-image, intelligence, humor, and a capacity for empathy and love are as important to a lesbian's look as her physical attributes." That said, there are other ways we can think about beauty, ones that locate beauty in the relationship of a thing to something else. These have explicit intersections with gender as well as race, class, and able-bodied status. For example, Professor John Kang writes,
through projection, members of the dominant group can project their collective forbidden longings, darkest qualities, and unspoken fears onto some external group. Thus, these negative qualities come to exist out there, not among the dominant group's members. This allows the dominant group to feel rational, pure, beautiful, and just. The question of racial beauty, then, necessarily involves negative self-identification. In order for something to be beautiful, something else must be ugly.
Researching fat activism, Lauren Guerrieri and Helene Cherrier write,
by representing the exemplary female prototype, as epitomized by the classic beauty, the sex kitten, or the girl next door, Advertising and marketing images powerfully promote a mythical wasp-oriented world in which no one is ever ugly, overweight, poor, or struggling. In turn, the idealized vision of female beauty is associated with thin bodies, while fatness represents revolting bodies. In this system of beauty, the female consumer is conceptualized as a subject who accepts her own fundamental ugliness. To reproduce the normative beauty ideal, she is encouraged to alter her body through a dizzying array of marketplace solutions, ranging from diet to exercise programs to cosmetic surgery.
And transgender scholar Susan Stryker writes,
Bodies are rendered meaningful only through some culturally and historically specific mode of grasping their physicality that transforms the flesh into a useful artifact. Gendering is the initial step in this transformation, inseparable from the process of forming an identity by means of which we're fitted to a system of exchange in a heterosexual economy.
This brings up a crucial point. Beauty standards and gender identity have been poisoned by white, ableist, Eurocentric colonialism. This is evident in the previous 3 quotes, but I want to make sure I'm explicit here. Many non-white and particularly indigenous communities have much different approaches to beauty and gender. For example, Barbie Stensgar, a member of the Colville tribe in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, writes the following about indigenous hairstyles. In many tribes, it is believed that a person's long hair represents a strong cultural identity. This strong cultural identity promotes self-esteem, self-respect, a sense of belonging, a healthy sense of pride. As part of the practice in self-respect, we are taught to take good care of our hair through proper grooming. In preparation for ceremonies, we take great care in the grooming, styling, and ornamentation of our hair. Our styling and ornamentation are guided by the values of our family and tribe. It is a form of creative self-expression that reinforces our connection to our family, tribe, and creation. So, for the Colville tribe, a hairstyle isn't beautiful just because the hair is clean and styled, but because that condition evokes a connection between the wearer and their people. It celebrates an entire community, an entire culture. For another example, this time on gender, Mi'kmaq scholar Margaret Robinson writes, The existence of suprabinary genders, i.e. genders in addition to male and female, in indigenous nations across what is currently North America has been well documented, in part because they reified settler views of indigenous people as backward or degraded. My reading of the anthropological literature suggests that people had leeway in how they lived their suprabinary gender. Due in part to the variety of gender expression, there is no easy translation from indigenous gender systems into settler equivalents. And these suprabinary genders exist around the world in spectra from the more binary to the more non-binary. Brother boys and sister girls in various Aboriginal Australian nations, Fa'afine in Samoa, Chibados in Angola, Leiti in Tonga, the Bisu in Indonesian Bugis societies, and the Inari in the lands between Poland and Russia, Scythia for you hipsters out there. Given the rich history of suprabinary genders out there, looking around today at the oppression bearing down on anyone who isn't cisgendered, it shouldn't be controversial to say that white colonialism is responsible for a massive suppression of trans rights fucking everywhere for fucking centuries. Anyway, to wrap this up, my goal is to navigate this topic as inclusively as possible, but because I'm going for a high-level approach focused on a narrow question, I'm definitely going to miss places in which non-white, non-colonizer cultures approach these questions differently. If you feel like I did you or your culture dirty on this one, make sure you let me know in the comments, and if you do a response video, I will make sure to link it on my own account, if you'd like. Now, you might be wondering why this topic is interesting to me and why I'm someone who should be weighing in on gendered beauty in the first place. To answer that, I suppose I'm going to have to reveal something about myself that not a lot of people know about me. And this is deepest that dang dad lore, so hopefully one day VatiVidya makes a video about me or something. In all seriousness though, this topic is something that's on my mind a lot because I am bisexual. Or pansexual, or omnisexual. I don't know, I just think that everyone is hot and I want to consensually smooch all of you. Now, long-time, eagle-eyed viewers of the That Dang Dad channel will recall that I have a young daughter, and to answer your question, yes, she is the product of my happy, hetero marriage. No wonder I don't feel straight enough for straight society, or queer enough for queer society. My experience of my bisexuality is one of finding a wide variety of people beautiful. Male, female, non-binary, gender fluid, and agendered cuties alike. That's why this topic is so interesting to me, because I'm attracted to the manly aspects of some men, the feminine aspects of some women, as well as to men and women who don't conform to those aspects, as well as to non-binary people who can look masculine, feminine, androgynous, or just uniquely themselves. So this brings me to the question that kicked off this whole conversation. Does human beauty necessitate a gendered component? And more importantly to me, does being attracted to the gendered aspects of a non-binary person's body invalidate or harm their experience of their gender? So let's talk about that first question. We've already seen that for many classical philosophers, their general ideas of beauty were generally gender neutral. Yet beauty as a concept has been used to categorize and control people on the basis of gender. Angela King tells us that woman's crime of being other, of embodying all that man fears and despises yet desires, finds fitting punishment in clothing that draws erotic attention to the body by simultaneously constraining and correcting it. According to de Beauvoir, in woman dressed and adorned, nature is present but under restraint, by human will molded nearer to man's desire. Although cosmetics have been commonly associated with individual expression, indulgence, and even emancipation, the idea that it is a woman's duty to be beautiful has been just as prevalent. And as Foucault noticed in the history of sexuality, this duty is enforced not just from the top down, but from innumerable points, not just rulers, but families, limited groups, and institutions. Álvaro Jarrin, writing about the political aspects of beauty in Brazil, says, "These narratives are highly gendered. It is usually women who are considered upwardly mobile because of their beauty, but it is becoming increasingly common for men to be recognized for their beauty as well. The standard of beauty was critiqued as unfair and unrealistic. Many called this beauty ideal a ditadura da beleza, the dictatorship of beauty. And while beauty has often been used to rank or control femme bodies, it can also be used to further privilege masculine ones. Here I'm thinking of the dad bod phenomenon of a few years back. Suddenly it was fashionable for a few rich, powerful men of a certain age to have softer, doughier bodies. Weirdly, women of those same certain ages were not entitled to the same celebration of their aging bodies." So it seems like, while a concept of beauty does not require a gendered component, gender seems to stick his little pervert nose in there whenever hierarchies and power structures are in play. Interesting. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to set that little nugget aside. If you want to deep dive on that topic, make sure to check out Harker's companion video. As for me, I now want to zero in on beauty as it relates to attraction by one person to another. And here, gender starts to do some interesting things. According to Judith Butler, gender is a performance, an active style of living one's body in the world. So if our experience of beauty is Sappho's "whatever you love best" or Burke's "that which causes passion," then it seems natural that the style in which a person lives their body in the world can be beautiful, and that others will be attracted to that style, whatever it may be. This definition also helps show that gender can be so much more than huge dingers and giant bazooms. I interviewed several non-binary people about this topic, and I learned some really fascinating things. For example, my friend Ashe told me that Fashion, for me, is very closely tied in with my gender. Ace, the econ NB, told me that my gender is my art, and I express that art in many different ways, but it is ultimately mine. Others will have different interpretations of it, but if one wants to make me feel beautiful, I want them to treat my gender as art that I have cultivated, that the act of expression is beautiful. I think some people read Butler's claim that gender is a performance and interpret that word to imply some kind of deception or inauthenticity. But this assumes gender is a rigid classification system meant to put people in their proper place. If instead we treat gender as a personal, ongoing process for expressing yourself in the world, the concept of a performance loses that sense of guile. My non-binary friends are at their most sincere and authentic when they explore and manifest gender on their own terms, and this ties their beauty and their gender together in a way that is much more liberatory than I expected when I first started thinking about this. However, this brings us back to my original conundrum. If I'm attracted to a non-binary person's dinger or their bazooms, meaning those body parts used to force people into gender binaries, am I harming that person? The people I spoke with had a variety of responses to this question. According to my friend Flask, I don't give a wet slap about how other people are attracted to the gendery parts of me. If you're into me, I don't really care how you relate to my body parts. Harker, my partner in crime for this video series, said that my biggest dysphoria is around facial hair. If people were into me with a beard, I'd be really upset. Ashe said that if a random stranger or someone who otherwise perceives me as a woman, say, finds my chest attractive, that does make me incredibly dysphoric and uncomfortable. On the other hand, if it's somebody close to me who correctly perceives me as genderless, then it doesn't bother me at all. I guess it all has to do with knowing how the person finding me attractive views me. And Ace says, I am openly amab and I have male genitalia, and I'm very happy about having such. If someone is attracted to that, I have no qualms about that as I like it myself. Unless they then go on to describe how manly it is. This is a common theme for the most part. It's not that I necessarily dislike masculine things, it's that I don't like those things being prescribed as manly or feminine or whatever. I don't like being put into boxes. So you may be hearing this and thinking, wait a second, everybody's answer was different and not very prescriptive. And yeah. Every conversation that I had about this, my friends were extremely quick to point out that they don't speak for the non-binary community as a whole, that every person experiences non-binariness or gender fluidity or being agendered differently, and that one person's dysphoria is another person's no big deal. So, as a freshly vaccinated bisexual ready to get his flirt on in the ashes of the American Empire, what's my takeaway from all of this? I think it's this. While I can't control what I find beautiful in a person, I can control whether I use that aspect of them to categorize them. More directly, I can control whether my articulation of their beauty limits them, boxes them in, and assigns them to a hierarchy of value. Or whether it empowers them, liberates them, and honors the person that they are to themselves. And the only way to know whether any particular articulation is empowering to them is to get to know them, to find out the ways they want to be interacted with, and to respect that. This means that in some sense, attraction isn't just a feeling that I have involuntarily, but a dialogue that I enter into with consent and sensitivity and a prioritization of the other person's needs. Of course, that raises the question. Shouldn't everyone be afforded that dignity, regardless of looks? And if so, does that mean we need to start moving towards a post-beauty society? I'll say this right up front. I have no idea what a post-beauty society would look like or how we would bring about such a world. However, I found the concept intriguing and I wondered if, like, say, a post-scarcity society, it was a distant goal for some. Luckily, the people I interviewed seemed to think this would be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Said Flask, I don't think we're ever not going to care about beauty, and why should we? people are fantastic and beautiful. But I'd like us to concentrate less on gendered expectations and the need to make everybody fit into a box. Per Ashe, I don't think doing away with beauty is the way, since it's a very important part of expression for so many people. I think beauty standards definitely need to go, as well as the forced gendering of everything. I think everyone would feel more free to express themselves if we didn't need to label everything men's or women's. And according to Ace, I wish to break down the hierarchy of gender as well as the forced assimilation into categories, not the identification itself. I feel the same about beauty, to be honest. Realistically speaking, I don't think it's possible to live in a world without physical beauty, and I don't think I'd want one. However, I do want to abolish the conception of beauty as strict, of beauty as right or wrong. This is for many things, whether it be gender or, say, weight. Never mind the colonialist and white supremacist aspect of many of the beauty standards in the United States. And despite it being me who asked the question in the first place, I tend to agree with my pals. It's hard for me to imagine a society where we don't notice our attractions, or one where we're compelled to repress those emotions. It does raise the interesting question, what does it mean to appreciate beauty, but get rid of beauty standards? I'll tell ya, I did a lot of research for this video, but this was a difficult question to find sources for. I mean, you can find 10,000 videos and essays saying that beauty standards are arbitrary and damaging, but I didn't find a lot of material that said, therefore you should do X, Y, and Z. So I guess I'll have to do it. As a white cis guy on the internet, I know it's unusual for me to tell people how to live their lives, but I'm gonna embrace the unfamiliarity and go for it. I think the blueprint for this can be found in how I ended the previous chapter, the notion that attraction can transcend an involuntary feeling and become a space to practice an ethical, consensual rapport with another human being. If that's true, I think it implies that we can also let a lack of attraction transcend as well. I think human connection is a practice, one that's made up of skills we train and habits we build. One of those habits should be the self-awareness to know whether we are privileging people we're attracted to or penalizing people that we're not, be that professionally or personally. However, longtime viewers of this channel will know that I'm much more interested in systems and structures as opposed to individuals. And I think the structures we live in do a lot to reproduce these toxic beauty standards and compulsory gender norms. You and I can be on our best behavior all damn day, but if the structure doesn't change, I don't know how much good that does ultimately. When white, cisgendered, able-bodied people dominate our government and our corporate boardrooms and our advertising and our media empires, is it any surprise that racism, colorism, ableism, fatphobia, and transphobia are so deeply embedded in the culture? Is it any surprise that black kids are having their inappropriate hair butchered by white teachers, or that non-passing trans people, or hell, even passing trans people, are almost never seen on television or in executive leadership positions in most companies? In saying that, it's tempting to veer into rainbow capitalism and demand that companies hire more black trans CEOs or whatever, but I don't just want to reproduce an oppressive regime with a cast of Hamilton this time. By all means, diversify your workplaces and your newsrooms and your congressional chambers ASAP. But I would like to live in a world that isn't at the mercy of corporate overlords and their political lapdogs. There's gotta be a better way. But while we're waiting for the revolution, let's you and I commit to being more curious about our own approaches to beauty and physical attraction. Let's really interrogate how we treat people, where we're allocating our attention, and how we're navigating our relationships. And let's practice rethinking the way that we use beauty. Let's practice a rejection of rigid categories and too snug boxes. Let's practice letting the way someone lives their body in the world be their musical composition, not our dissection project. And let's practice new ways of finding people beautiful beyond the physical standards of the day, beyond their dingers and their bazooms. Modes of beauty such as their passion, their kindness, their humor, their empathy, their courage, their sense of justice, or hell, just their unique humanity. Is that going to be easy for some of us? Maybe not. Are there going to be times we donk it up and hurt someone's feelings? Of course. That's why I'm calling this a dialogue, a practice, a dance of sorts. A relationship is not an algorithm where you plug in all the right numbers and fulfillment pops out. It's a dynamic process where people negotiate and compromise and push and pull and find a rhythm that works for them. I just think that if we can expand our horizon of the thinkable when it comes to beauty and gender, it will open up new spaces to find new rhythms with new people. And I think that's beautiful. Wow, so we covered a lot. Complex stuff boiled down and chopped up into oversimplified bite-sized pieces. What do you think about all this? Like, what does beauty mean to you? I especially want to hear from binary trans people, non-binary people, gender fluid people, genderqueer people, agendered people. What do you all think about all of this? What makes you feel beautiful, and what should people know about how best to honor the real you? How does the way we practice beauty in the modern world affect you? Let us know in the comments. As for me, I just appreciate you going on this journey of education with me. I learned a lot researching this with Harker, and I learned that I still have a lot of learning to do. But I enjoy sharing that process with you, and I enjoy learning from you all. I won't always get things right, but I like to think I'm approaching these things with humility and a compassionate heart. Anyway, thank you again for joining me. Make sure that you go check out Harker's companion video. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, but most importantly, please share this video with somebody that you think would find it interesting. That said, stay safe out there and stay beautiful. Good night.